My name's Greg Bryant. I'm the chief engineer on Full Metal Challenge. The actual design of these courses was a collaborative effort with several people, but most of the actual specifications came down to me. How big, how wide, what types of equipment to use. Kathy Rogers and I developed most of the concepts, at least to the point where they were good games, viable games that we could use as a program here. Bringing them to life is what I view as my job on this program, to actually take the vision, the creative vision of others, and actually bring it to life in terms of real hardware, real earthworks, whatever's required to actually make the show work. So Grand International, roller coaster, pit ball, 10-pin, each one of those had different challenges in terms of how to actually provide to different people the ideas, the sketches, the designs to actually construct the equipment that makes this show work. And of course, as with all television or media productions, we've got to do it on a very, very short schedule and typically a very limited budget. So it's not like the theme parks that I've worked on in the past for both Walt Disney Imagineering and Universal Studios. This is more akin to a carnival that only has to last for 4 weeks. So we can't make it too good, but it still has to be safe. And everything does have to work the first time because our shooting schedule doesn't allow for slips. It doesn't allow for anything to go wrong. And so far, we've kept on schedule. We've got one show left, and after that, it's in the can. The rest will be history. This is 10-pin, formerly the large turbine hall of a now defunct power plant where we set up a 10-pin bowling game. The alley behind me is about 100 feet long, and we've got 2 pads, 40 by 50 feet. The pad here, where we have the skittles, is covered with plastic, as the alley is, which we cover the whole thing with soap when we actually run the games. The soap is to provide a very slippery surface because, in fact, you are the ball. This is one of our 12 skittles. Of course, it was 10-pin bowling, but we knew that the cars would be colliding with these pretty hard, so we had to make sure we had spares. There are badges of honor on each one, large patches where vehicles have collided. This one actually had a broken neck. It's 12 feet tall. It's covered with a coating that's like fiberglass, except it's a tad more flexible. You can see that I can push in here. And it was pretty durable, but it wasn't as durable as the vehicles running into it. We would overhaul them every night, make sure that they were show ready, and I think this pin needs a big hug. The alley was built on top of the original turbine hall floor. We set 9-inch concrete blocks along the edge, and then we cast a very level alley in this area so that we would have a nice flat surface on which to mount the plastic that was the actual skid surface that the cars would run on. The area where the car started out from doesn't have plastic on it. It's just gray paint that's there, gray warehouse paint. We wanted to allow the cars at least a minimal run-up before they actually hit the sliding area so that they could get some traction there. The theory being that once they hit the slippery soap on top of the plastic, they wouldn't be able to gain traction, but they would at least have some semblance of steering. Sort of an analogy to a bowling ball being spun down the alley. They could actually curve, they could spin their wheels, they could steer somewhat, but they wouldn't be able to pick up speed and actually run into the pins too hard. For most vehicles, that proved to be true. There were a few that were able to gain traction quite smartly down the alley and actually did destroy a couple of our pins in some of the games. These are our skittles. These skittles gave their life for Full Metal Challenge. You can see the skittles have a construction. It's styrofoam on the inside, has a very durable covering on the outside. There we go. Rip that apart. They're actually quite light. He says as he lifts a large piece and drops it on his foot. This is actually the broken head off one of our skittles that are here. You can see that on the inside, there's a hollow spot. There was a 2-inch, 2.5-inch piece of pipe that ran up here that was actually the spine of the skittle itself that prevented it from coming completely apart when it got impacted by one of the vehicles. On the base of each one of these skittles, we had about a 1/2 inch of steel plate, 30 inches in diameter, that counterbalanced it so it wouldn't get knocked over easily. That being said, there were a couple of instances where the skittle did get knocked over and that large plate did skewer a vehicle. The Ice Vikings were one that ran into a skittle, and we did take out their steering with the steel plate on the bottom, much to their consternation, thinking it was just going to be a fun little bowling game. nothing's fun in Full Metal Challenge.